Duah is a former advisor on governance at the United Nations. He's a governance expert, is joining us on Zoom. Professor Prof. Agyeman Duah, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on Key Point.
Good morning, and good morning to all my friends in the studio. Thanks for having me.
Great. And if you could kindly sit back a bit for me so I can see your full image. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, Professor Nogedri, just a quick one, please.
Bafo, good morning. My greetings to Vida, your sister.
Good morning.
Yes. So, one thing that I wanted to submit is that policies are all over the world morally framed, the same way as governance is morally framed. So the countries that we are picking some of these things from them and that they are putting pressure, so much pressure on us, I'm talking about the LGBTQ+. I had a situation, one of my former president of a university was caught for DUI. So she was caught drunk on Saturday evening at a party. She was fired. We have some states in the US that you cannot sell alcohol on Sundays because this is even state laws. That is their values. We have a situation where timing, and a lot of things lying on oath is value that some of these countries uphold. So if we're a country, and I'm telling our leader, this is from the leadership standpoint, that we should have the values to behold, else we are lost on the way. The other thing is that the more you have responsibilities, the more you should be accountable to the people. Power actually don't belong to the executive, don't belong to the legislative or the judiciary. It belongs to we, the people.
Indeed.
So what the people want is what they have to do for us. If you become a leader and you want to do what you want, then I am surprised that you call yourself a leader. The people sent you there. Do exactly what they want for you to do. And that's how democracy works.
Fantastic. Thank you. Professor Prof. Agyeman Duah, now this tussle, I know we've seen it, is that an impasse or a tussle. We've seen how things are played out and the positions, the entrenched positions that have been taken at some point. Focusing on what the way forward should be, what are some of the lessons should be taken from this tussle we are seeing to ensure that it strengthens and improves on our governance so as we don't get to this point going forward?
Well, thank you, Alfred. You see, just taking a cue from what the last speaker has said, it's unfortunate that we are being buffeted by countries who themselves claim to be democratic, but in many ways are not, with the double standards they play and all that. Like you said, about 13, 15 states in the United States have placed some limitations on the rise of LGBTQ. Kansas, you cannot fly the flag. Elsewhere, you cannot even utter certain words. Here we are, a sovereign nation, having our values, democratic values, yes, but there's something else to what we cherish. Culture, whether people believe we don't have any culture, because some of my intellectual friends do argue, what culture do we have? Which is very unfortunate indeed. But I'll come direct to your question. You see, those who are constitutionalists or lawyers arguing on the lines of what the president ought to have done, I think they technically sure they are on the right track in arguing that way. That is to say, the president stopping the submission of the bill itself seemed to be an infringement on this provision in the Constitution, where the president is obliged to receive. Then you have three options: to reject, to accept, or to ask for some kinds of amendments. But I don't think that was followed. Going forward, democracy thrives not on legalities. Let me be clear on that. Unfortunately, we have lawyers dominating our political processes, as we find in many other countries, especially in Ghana. Lawyers are dominating, so everything is subjected to legalities. Democracy thrives, of course, on the Constitution, which is itself a basic law of the land. But more than that, it also thrives on the ability of the actors to meet, consult, compromise, and make certain decisions, especially when we are faced with a very important national interest. On this particular issue and the tug of war that we have found between the legislature and the executive, this is a situation where overwhelmingly Ghanaians have endorsed something. I say overwhelmingly because if you add all the churches that have spoken on this, all the traditional leaders that have spoken on it, I don't know who else forms a base for the majority. But of course, there are also activists, intellectuals, who are also using international human rights issues to also argue their case. And that's what democracy is all about. But after we've gone through all the arguments and the people's representatives make the stand, it becomes what one may call the national interest that needs to be pursued. So when there is this kind of tug of war, I would have expected that the executive will initiate perhaps a private consultation instead of stopping the bill from being submitted, or long before even they came to a conclusion, they voted on it. There should have been some kind of private negotiations for the president, letting the legislature know the implications of what they're doing, all right? And of course, those in the legislature are Ghanaians who I presume do have the national interest at heart as their first priority. And therefore, if the executive is able to convince them, I'm sure they are Ghanaians, they will know what is good for us and what is not. That will lead to some kind of compromise, certain changes and all. That should have been the path to solving this problem, not this tit for tat show of power and that kind of stuff. That doesn't really help us. So look, like the letter that the Minister of Finance issued after the bill has been passed, that letter, all of us became public, where they are now giving us the reasons why the bill should not be passed. This is something that has been negotiated prior to the passing for the legislature to know. And if in fact they saw these reasons and they think they are in the best interest of the nation, that's where we go. We are looking for what is best for the country, what the people, the majority of the people, just as we use majorities to elect presidents. The same way in democracy, we use it. But of course, I'm also aware of instances where the executive, for some good reasons, because see, the executive get to know and see things that you and I will never know or see. So in their position, we assume that they have better insights on certain issues. That I can understand. But not when it's clear that we are being pushed by foreign interest. And this, let's be clear, we don't have to shy away from that. Just a week or so ago, a certain prominent democracy scholar was in this country saying that if this bill is not passed, we're going to lose APC, it's going to have serious consequences. But you see, if our president wants, he can talk to the nation on the implications, as people are saying, and let the people say, look, we have alternatives or we don't. Because I don't believe that the only alternative we have to maintain our dignity as a people is to risk giving. So
Yes, Prof, I do appreciate your time on this. And please stay with me. I have to go for this quick break. When I'm back, we would get into another issue that I would have you also speak on as well, because it still borders on our daily lives. But there were a number of your messages coming through. This one from lawyer Eduji Tamaklo, who is Director of Legal of the NDC. He says, good morning, Alfred. Warm regards to your panelist. I need to correct some misconceptions regarding whether or not there was the need for a motion for abridgment of time. The above was the notice that was issued by the Registry of the Supreme Court under the heading Fixing of Date for Hearing of Application. If you read it, it says that the date will be fixed for hearing after 14 days. I think I made reference to that in all my questions to Bobby Bunsen. If a party decides to set a date earlier than the 14 days, you must apply for it by a motion for abridgment. The letter is insufficient, and letter must be copied to the other parties, and this was not done. Thank you for, it says the message with that. I think we also made reference to that on the basis of fairness, maybe not necessarily legally, that should have been done. Thank you as well from Malik Adama, sends a message from WA, also talking about something on the same tangent, says we must all be cautious about the signals that all of this sends. And Issa Morning as well, and also Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo. Thank you very much for the messages. I'll be back shortly after this quick break. We're getting to this doomsday that we are all experiencing. The Energy Minister says that if you demand a timetable, then you've got to provide one yourself. And ECG says they cannot produce a timetable because what is happening is not really their fault. We should be asking questions of GridCo. We'll be back shortly after this quick break.